Architect Divya Chakravarti. She completed her undergraduate studies from SRM University and she went on to pursue her master's in historic preservation and urbanism and study of the built environment from the University of California, Los Angeles. She went on to work for the Department of Planning and Preservation for the city of Pasadena, California. She also did a brief stint of work for Historic Scotland, Edinburgh, UK. She also worked on conservation projects like Kalsa Mahal, Gokhale Hall in Chennai, and Marimalappa Educational Trust in Mysore. She is currently working as a director of Samrakshan Heritage Consultancy. She is also a co-founder of the Artisan Reprisal of Traditional Materials, Method and Technology. She goes on to conduct workshops to revive traditional and lost methods of construction.
Welcome to the UGC lecture series. This is for Bachelors of Architecture. The subject we are looking into is architectural conservation. The topic we are discussing is conservation planning. We will be discussing the case study of Pondicherry and the nuances of conservation project management. So, how was the project implemented in the case of Pondicherry? Number one, listing, documentation and intervention. It's very important to understand what kind of heritage buildings actually exist, what is the documentation in the sense, what is the level it is in, that is it dilapidated, is in good condition, not very good condition, all that has to be documented. Legal protection of heritage buildings, endangered architectural heritage, restoration, new buildings in heritage precincts, the Asia Urbs program, Model Street Restoration Project, Matching Grant Scheme, Building Plaques and Street Signboards, Heritage Awareness Program, and finally project proposals. So, the Asia Urbs program was a major break that happened for Pondicherry because it got funding from another place. It was in a currency that really made a difference to a city like Pondicherry. Now, if you look at the particular map of Pondicherry, you can see we discuss 4 categories of historic buildings. You have category 1, 2A, 2B and finally 3. You can see the number of buildings we have lost over a period of time, especially in the Tamil quarter. And finally, if you look at the majority of buildings in the Tamil quarter, that is above the central boulevard, this entire region is the Tamil quarter, we have a majority of grade 3 buildings which is not actually considered very important. But it is very crucial for an entire streetscape that is there. This entire area is very important and we have about 294 buildings of grade 2 and only 5 buildings of grade 1. And in the French quarter, the scene is actually not much better. Grade 1 you have only 7 buildings. Grade 2A and 2B. 2B is in majority with 126. Again, the French quarter was initially been given importance because obviously it was a richer part of the town. The residents were willing to spend money on their own to look after these properties. Versus the Tamil quarter, you had large pockets, especially here, which is essentially the Muslim quarter. This is the Christian quarter and this entire area here, the northern portion is the Hindu quarter. So, what happened is here government intervention was more prevalent and needed because there was lack of funding, versus the French quarter actually did not require too much funding. But ironically, it is only because of the French quarter that we got the affiliated department from France to give us funding for the same. So, this is the first step that was taken by the Asia Urbs to list and document what all buildings of relevance are there in Pondicherry. Now, what was the central part of intact? The first step is preparation of measured drawings and second, photo documentation. This is the basis for carrying out various activities related to preservation of the built heritage. These activities include restoration, adaptive reuse and extension of listed buildings, designs of new buildings and heritage precincts, preparing publications and conducting awareness programs. So, if you look at the status of architectural heritage over here, this is the Vizhial street in the Tamil quarter. You can see how badly it was demolished, a building All these, the main reason is they just wanted to build something higher. But this Asia Urbs program happened in the right time, and the street was actually made a model street and it was entirely changed. So what are the basic attributes associated with destruction of heritage? Number one, developmental pressure. In the sense, the value of land increases. So you have pressurized to get more productivity from the land. Next, division of property. If a man has 4 sons, 2 daughters, something like that, the property has to essentially be divided. Lack of maintenance, and this is another reason, is lack of funds. If I don't have any money to maintain the property, then the property is going to go into disrepair. Changing lifestyles and tastes. A person could sell the house in the Tamil quarter to someone else who might not relish its importance, and he might decide that I don't want my house to look like this and change it. And all these now discussed topics is because of lack of heritage awareness. They don't know the importance. Either the buyer or the seller doesn't realize the importance and the heritage value of owning a house in this particular street. Now, if you look at this image over here, you can see how it has been drastically changed. The entire character of the street is being altered. Look at the original over here and look at the after images over here. Unnecessary projections into the street. Now, if the house on the opposite side also decides to project so much in front, your carriage width and your street characters are absolutely going to change. Over 700 listed buildings have been lost over the past 10 years alone, and most of them are unfortunately in the Tamil sector. These have been replaced by structures that are aesthetically jarring to the traditional streetscapes, leading to the loss of identity. Again, to the right, you have the prime example. This building doesn't have to exist in Pondicherry. This can be plonked anywhere and it's going to look the same. Versus this building, if I take a picture of this and show it, you'll know this building belongs in Pondicherry. So that is the difference, how the changes are being made. It has to be made in the correct way such that the sense of place and identity is never lost. With no legal regulations for listed heritage buildings, the demolition obviously cannot be prevented. It is someone's property, they can destroy it, they can decide to rebuild it. We need legal regulations, only then can the heritage value and the building be saved. The preparation of the detailed development plan or the DDP with the assistance of INTAC to provide legal protection as well as financial and other incentives to heritage owners. Under the DDP, the old boulevard and the town of Pondicherry are declared as heritage zones comprising of the Tamil and French precincts. Now, after the Asia Urbs program, such articles became commonplace. Everyone started taking interest in what was happening in Pondicherry. The government, because of the interference of INTAC, 25 government buildings also were put up for restoration, which was never done before. And cost of restoration, the government matched what France was giving. 1.1 crores was assigned, 42 crores was again totally given by the government at a later date. So what actually happened was, it started getting noticed by the entire country, not just Pondicherry as a union territory, and because it's a union territory, funding actually came from the central government as well. And because France was involved, they had to protect the identity of the country as well. It was a very much respected project that took place. Now, restoration of heritage buildings and streetscapes. The first priority is to restore individual heritage buildings so they can be provided with modern facilities and the owners and users are not given the back seat. That okay, the building is more important, you don't need to have all the modern conveniences. That is wrong. All the amenities have to be provided in a sustainable manner. And under the tagline of adaptive reuse, old houses can be converted into shops, restaurants, hotels and also such purposes, cafes, etc. If you look at the streetscape over here, this is the mansion Colombani. You can see how it has been made, before how it was and now how it's been made. Certain additions have been removed and things like that. And this is a residence of Anita, and this too has been altered to suit the correct way it was supposed to be constructed. All the later additions, haphazard developments have been removed, like the columns over here and the color, everything has been altered accordingly. Now, how do you go about building new and heritage precincts? The construction and finish of the building has to follow traditional method, brickwork and plastering, preferably only in lime cement plaster. You need to integrate the concept of Talavaram in the design. Avoid placing bathrooms and staircases in the front because the facade will get disrupted. You need to even prevent having air conditioning units in the front. If at all you need an air conditioning unit, the compressor should be placed in the sides. Placing doors and windows should be of the right proportion. They should be symmetrically in the wall panels, delineated by pilasters and cornices. You have to use wood for all the doors and windows, and if possible you have to recycle the old doors and windows from a demolished property. Using traditional finishes and colors, rustic shades like yellow, green, ochre, blue if that particular district cast for it, especially in the French Quarter there is quite a blue scene, terracotta, red, and you need to avoid cladding with stones or tiles. No alcove paneling, nothing like that. Using traditional patterns for windows, shades, balconies, gates, garage doors, awnings, everything. Modern materials can be used, but it should be with care and sensitivity. Now you can look at this particular building over here. Certain demolished properties, this is what the owner actually suggested, and this intact does. You want a G+2 house. The owner came about saying, I have 2 sons, I want to give 2 floors to one floor, and I shall live in the ground floor. Intact gives a alternate suggestion to suit that particular streetscape. Similarly, over here in the French Quarter and Tamil Quarter, suitably designs are altered by intact. And if you are not able to prevent demolition of a heritage building, intact will help owners come up with new facades, new plans to actually help the owners with a good property, at the same time not compromise the heritage value of the building. Here you have all of these are new buildings, but if you actually look at the entire streetscape, you will not think it is new at all. Now, what actually is the procedure for building plan approval? If you follow this flow chart, you will see. First, the applicant needs to submit a plan to the Pondicherry Planning Authority. Then the planning authority, first thing it does is direct it to the conservation cell for an opinion. If it is harmonious with the character of the precinct, it's easy. The conservation cell will give the clearance within 3 days, and then the PPA, that is the Planning Authority of Pondicherry, will proceed it back to the owner. What happens if it is not harmony with the streetscape? The conservation cell will forward suggestions for improvement, and an alternate facade will be given to the owner or the PPA within 5 days. And then the applicant has to make these changes, no choice. He has to resubmit these plans again to the PPA, and the whole process will start again. So this is what happens. Now, the details of the Asia Urbs program and the main reason how Pondicherry actually changed completely. This is an initiative of the European Commission to assist Asian cities in improving urban environments in partnership with European cities. So the collaboration for this happened with Urbino in Italy and with France as well. So what were the objectives? The main objective was to achieve economic and environmental goals through heritage preservation techniques. Main projects that they took about is model street restoration, a matching grant scheme, installation of building plaques and street signboards, solid waste management, and battery charging stations. So these were the main projects that they took about. So the rare streetscape where traditional continuous verandas have survived in the Tamil Quarter is the Vaisiyal Street. For this reason, this was chosen to be the model street. What did the restoration project entail? The object was to showcase a typical Tamil streetscape and to persuade house owners to appreciate their heritage homes. The total cost of this was 50,000 euros, which went a long way in rupees when the project was done in 2002. Again, like we mentioned, it gained a lot of national and international importance. It was given, conferred with UNESCO Asia Pacific Heritage Award was given. So it actually got a lot of influence from the West, international influence, and a result of this, a lot of international tourists started coming to Pondicherry. And because people started coming to Pondicherry, if you look at the streetscape finally in 2009 and how it was before, it was definitely something people were attracted to come to. And if people decided to come to Pondicherry, the main thing what happened is Chennai received importance, India received importance, and tourists started to visit near neighboring places like Chidambaram, Pichavaram. All of these places started gaining a lot of popularity in the World Heritage Map because of Pondicherry. So the Asia Urbs project put Pondicherry, and not only Pondicherry but also the neighboring cities, in a great position. Now, what actually happened with the matching grant scheme and how helpful was it? With the objective of improving the survival rate of all the listed buildings, this scheme was provided to give financial assistance to 10 owners. So, what it actually did was, assuming the maximum they can give is 5,000 euros to every owner, 50% of the cost was given by them, if 50% was taken by the owner. So, a lot of the owners, even though they did not have too much money, decided that this is the best opportunity to increase the value of their houses. So, they went about doing it. Heritage walk, like we first discussed, the best way to analyze and appreciate a place is through a heritage walk, and this was the most effective way to highlight the heritage and bring a sense of pride amongst the residents. This was designed by Intact to highlight the rich architectural heritage, and there was an introductory video which helped the residents as well as the tourists. Development of appropriate signages was the most important thing that came about, where plaques were mounted in 20 noteworthy private and public hoardings. So, brief information is given about the background and the architecture. Now, this is the map that was actually given to all the tourists and local people. So, this contained the legend, the map, and the lines marked out for different kinds of walks that is recommended. Museum galleries were marked out, landmarks, heritage buildings, and shops and different services. So, this was one cohesive guideline map given to everyone in the city. So, what were the results and impacts? The project influenced city planning ideas and now serves as a role model for many other projects in the city. The Visual Street project has significantly lifted the feeling of ownership and pride among residents, and demolition rate has definitely come down. The project was instrumental in creating jobs related to increased restoration activity, also through tourism, retail and hospitality industry that has increased several folds because of the Asia Urbs program. The approach process, experience and information was shared with various stakeholders. Emphasis is given to public and private partnerships such that interest groups are developed, government and private benefits from it, and effective practical solutions are the end result. So, what is conservation project management? Basic project management is an application of knowledge, skills, tools and techniques to project activities to meet project requirements. It is accomplished through processes, project management knowledge, skills, tools and techniques to generate great outputs. So, you need to have management of scope, procurement and integration is important. You need to decide what is the scope, risks and how are you going to go about doing it. So, if you look at this flow chart, this is very important. Planning and organizing, then the next stage is leading and motivating, controlling and labor issues, controlling what kind of material is going to be used and making sure your objectives are being met with the end result. What are the functions of management? Planning, organizing, coordinating, staffing with respect to labor issues, communicating with the laborers, especially through contractors or the conservation architect, all that is very crucial. Controlling and motivating are another important thing, controlling in the terms of what kind of materials are going to be used and motivate them towards a better conservation project, because conservation may not be understood by all laborers. So, in project management terms, you need to have the job, the stakeholders, what are the goals and objectives, what is the end result you are looking for in terms of requirements, materials, labor, what kind of storage is required, deliverables and milestones. So, fundraising is very important. You need to work with a client and make sure you are with the schedule for the project. You need to create a checklist of tasks. You need to factor in training issues. You have to factor in risk management and plan an event of disasters like floods, excessive rains, all of that. So, when scheduling is done, you need to be realistic with respect to labor issues. How flexible are there? Are there any important festival absences, research, documentation, any kind of external consultants like HVAC, electrical, fire management, a schedule for different kinds of purchase orders, purchase distribution, how you are going to go about executing that particular plan. And it should be very much noted that the execution process issues will come about, especially with respect to material and labor issues. So, effective communication is the best means to promote a healthy relationship and a healthy project final result. And another thing is project execution. You need to have corrective action should be taken immediately if a mistake has been made. You don't want the mistakes to pile up till the very end. The conservator should take a very active role in this phase. Regular meetings need to be set up. Developing space should be there. Specifications should be followed. Material and planning details should be followed. So, at the very end of this, when you come, we have learnt about the case study of Pondicherry in detail. We have seen how the Asia Herbs program has helped. We have seen how the city has actually developed and how tourism as well as urban conservation can go hand in hand, and where demolition is not the only end result. And in conservation project management, we have briefly seen what are the steps involved in a conservation project. And at the end, we should be able to answer the following questions. Discuss heritage awareness program used in Pondicherry. What is matching grant scheme? What is project management? Discuss briefly the steps involved in conservation project management. That brings us to the end of the lecture. Thank you.